Hello everyone. I've been working on a little devlog app in Rails, something that lets me keep track of what I'm working on, when I worked on it, and add little notes along the way. I wanted to make something for myself and learn Ruby at the same time, so I decided to make this project. Before we begin showing you how I made it, I just wanted to show you how it works. So I've named it devlog right now. You can start a new project. You can add a new name, like devlog, add a description, and create the project. Now, every time you come back to this project, you want to start a new session. Any opening notes you might have, and then start your session. Here's where we can add updates as we work on the app. And then when we want to finally end the session, we can add some closing notes. And that's it. That's the end of our session. So now we can read this as I worked on making the video to show my progress, opening notes, updates, and closing notes. We can also export this to a markdown file, and we can head back to the project and we can create a new session. Now, I've also included a export all, so it'll export every single session if you want. So I started the app by making a new project here on RubyMine, but as this was my first time ever in Rails and Ruby, I had to install an interpreter and the gems, and that's still really new to me. I'm learning about that, but I heard that it was kind of weird on Windows, so I tried installing everything on WSL, and I accidentally installed it twice in two different directories. I installed it on a Docker, trying to set up a container there just so I can get something going, but I ended up getting everything to work through WSL still, and so that was a problem. I mean, that took me an hour or so to figure that out, but the hardest part, and surprisingly so, was trying to install Tailwind for this project, because I mean, you'd think it'd be easy, right? I mean, installing Tailwind as a CSS package, like one command away, but starting a new project through RubyMine defaults the JavaScript framework to import map, which I didn't know Tailwind is not friends with import map, because you have to wire everything up manually, and I don't want to do that because I don't know how to do that. And it took me so long to figure out that I could just use this command, Rails new devlog, specify the framework, and of course set it to Tailwind. So doing this does everything for me and saves me so much time and headaches. I mean, I was working on this an entire night trying to get Tailwind to work, and yeah, it's all because it doesn't work with import map. Let this finish here. Once that was done, it was time to scaffold our models, since Rails is an MVC, which I have a little bit of experience with .NET, so it was pretty cool to be working with that again. Started with projects. Then we generate the scaffold for our session. And then lastly, our entries. Something that I had to wrap my head around and still fully don't understand is how Rails handles routes. So I come here and this is how I set up my routes for the project. And actually, let me just open this other new project. So now that I'm here back in the new project and on our routes, I'll just paste this here. So our route is going to be on our projects index. And then this is, as far as I understand, this is how we sort of make the relationships between projects and sessions and entries. So for each project, we have sessions. For every session, we have some entries. And then these other things are extras. So on my projects, I have that export all thing. And actually, I can get rid of this because I no longer have that quick new for sessions. So after I scaffolded everything, it was time to make some more associations and relationships between the objects. Right now, we have session. So I wanted to say that each session had many entries, and I wanted to validate the name and that there are opening notes for each session. And then I created this export method, which is the export method I use when we export to Markdown. So an entry belongs to a session, and I wanted to validate that the response and created at fields were there. I also used Stimulus in this project to create a local time controller. And all this does is take the time that I was created at and just convert it to local time. So I can use it. This is what I use for each entry. After that, it's updating each of my controllers. I added some before actions where I set the project, the session, and the entry. And I have to make these new methods down here in the private section. And I actually modify both of these. So we'll get rid of those. And I set the project using the ID, set the session, and get the entries. And while we're here on the controllers, this is something that I found interesting about Rails and Ruby, is that there's this sort of magic that happens where you can just use, these almost seem to me like constants that are built as I scaffold new items that have relationships and whatnot. So previously, I mean, this defaults to entries path, right? But I'd use something like project session path. So I would redirect to the project session using the project that we set and the session that we set earlier up here, right? So that is just very cool to me to see how easy it is to do that. Like it almost reads as English, right? So another example of this is updating the create method here. So I'd get the entry, I'd make sure to set the time to now when it's created, save it, and then if it saves properly, I redirect to the project session path using the project and session as we did down here. And then, I'd give it a notice or alert. So it's really interesting. And this is my first time ever touching Ruby, but I think I actually kind of like it, and it's probably something that I'd use in the future again. I think I have a few things that I want to work on for this project in order to finish it. Little things like, moving elements, just overall cosmetic changes, I think. I don't think there's much, if any, back-end logic that I need to implement. So after that, though, I do want to containerize this somehow into Docker so I can push it up and then you can download the image and run this locally if you want to run your own devlog. So I learned a lot from this. I mean, most of it was from Ruby. I am accustomed to MVC already, so that was nice to go into it already familiar with the architecture. It's definitely not perfect, but I like what I made so far. It took me a couple days to make this, and I think it's always fun to dive right into a project, especially a language that you don't even know, and just work on something that you think might be useful. If you haven't tried out Ruby, I definitely suggest giving it a go because it's pretty interesting. It was confusing, I'm not going to lie. At first it was very, very confusing. I'm very used to C-like languages. I mean, most of my experience is in C#, so coming to an interpreted language is very weird, but on top of that, the magic path thing here is awesome. So just this alone, I'd suggest making a Ruby project. It's really cool. But thanks for watching this week's devlog. I didn't work on my game a lot this week, but I'm not quitting that project. This was just a side project I wanted to work on real quick and get some hands-on experience with Ruby since it's something that I was sort of interested in. And yeah, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.